Welcome back to Blunt in the Bedroom after our holiday break. I'm here with Arely. My name's Patty, and we're recording from the cozy comfort of each of our bedrooms in the wildly wonderful legal cannabis state of Oregon. We're going to have a blunt and to be blunt. Maybe not blunt enough, maybe too blunt. You decide. Well, the two of us have had a lot of conversations, maybe for the whole course of our friendship, where we find ourselves ranting about any number of things, of course. And we always seem to land on some sort of recognition of how propaganda figures into the problem. So we're going to start a bigger project this time. We've got three different arenas of life and propaganda that we want to go deeper into, but this is our introduction episode. So we want to cover what is propaganda, both technically, like definitionally, and colloquially, how the average person uses that word. And also, we want to explore what is known about the tactics of propaganda. Why does it work? And how does it dupe us? And while usually we would be partaking of our favorite herb while we seek wisdom through the bullshit, today we both have more meetings. So, wah, wah, wah. This is the sober episode.
Yeah, maybe this time we won't at towards the end start feeling like we're talking nonsense. Because that's usually what it feels like for me. Like I feel like we start out, everything is fine, and then towards the end, I'm like, did I make sense? Did I just talk into a circle? Like just talk in a circle? Like did that make any sense at all?
I think that's when
That's
the good
crazy.
shit gets said.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so the definition according to Google Dictionary. The definition of propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
I mean, I think that makes sense to me. I guess
Yeah.
I just think of advertising as propaganda. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. To me, isn't that what advertising does? Is it pumps up their claims about their product to
Hmm.
a point that, it's like on the edge of, well, that's true versus not
Yeah.
true. I don't know. So
I
I
mean,
guess
yeah, because if you think about even like dishwashers, right? Like the advertisement for dishwashers are all like, this is the environmentally friendly way. You can run your dishwasher 3 or 4 times a day and it's totally fine because it's better than washing dishes. It's not that simple though, at all. Like that's not even true to do that. Like if you're one of those people that have to run your dishwasher, like when you wash your dishes, it's like full water, all the way hot, all the way high for the whole time you're washing dishes. I could see that, but it's not true. Or like when those commercials with toothpaste where dentists are like, or the toothpaste people are like, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this. It's the best toothpaste or whatever. Like, okay, but did you pick those 10 dentists? Are they, you know what I mean? Like, that's not really, but you hear it and it's like, oh, wait a minute.
right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like,
Totally. That is out. I mean, right. That's the thing. They only literally had to find nine dentists that said yes.
yeah.
Uh, what? It means nothing.
Exactly.
It's these
They could have interviewed
advertising
a
claims.
thousand.
Right. It's these advertising claims that are like, not, I mean, it's not that they're not true, but to me, that's misleading.
It
Like,
is.
right? Because is that saying that literally 90% of dentists are convinced that that's the toothpaste you should have? Like, no, that's not it. But that's what, the average person, I think, should I even be saying the average person? I don't know if that's even the right way to say this, but like a person who, let's say, a person who went through standard American school and is now working some sort of job that pays their bills plus a little something, right? Like if I'm going to
Mhm.
say average person, I don't even know. Am I saying that right?
I think so. I
Eh,
think average person is fine.
okay. Yeah, that's weird. It's like, how do we have these conversations without generalizing too much?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I would say that probably my perception of propaganda is that it's bigger than what would be defined as officially propaganda because I see elements of propagandist manipulation worming its way into all bits of media. you
Yeah.
know? Like I don't know.
I mean, I think it's all propaganda, like equally propaganda, but I think they're not all equally problematic.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, and this is where the definition gets a little funny, right? Because the definition is saying that there is an intention to mislead or manipulate. So, but how, sorry if I'm taking us way off track here, but it's like if the intention is to get you to buy my product
hmm,
and I've said something that leads you to think more positively about my product than is actually factually true. I mean, to me, that's meeting the definition.
yeah, I agree. It is. But
So
it's like if you, I mean, because okay, so I still think that is equally propaganda. Like, but obviously, buying a particular toothpaste is not the same level as like the war in Russia. As far like it's
yes,
propaganda, but obviously we're not going to be like this is just as bad as that because it's not. Of course, it's not. But you know, it
right,
is still like you're trying to influence someone with partial truths and well, that's how I think of propaganda. Like you use partial truths to manipulate
sure.
what good or bad. I mean, you know, like we all tell our, you know, well, I've always tried to not lie to my kid, but you know, the whole, and it's not going to bring you something if you know, don't eat your vegetables. Like,
Oh
I mean,
no.
that's probably pretty far off, but you know what I mean? Like, it's still saying something that kind of, that might not be a good example propaganda, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just said
Well,
that and I'm like, I don't think so.
I know. Even thinking through this and looking things up for this episode, I started getting myself into thinking about gaslighting, but I actually do think
Mm-hmm.
that that's different. I think
Yeah.
gaslighting can be part of propaganda, but gaslighting is more like literally trying to convince someone that they didn't see what they saw or vice
Yeah.
versa.
Or that
Right.
something's their fault or
Yeah,
whatever.
like trying to just literally change reality by
Yeah.
telling them something enough times or in manipulative enough ways. So that is like an extra level of gross on top of just what
Yeah.
propaganda is, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is definitely I definitely think they're pretty maybe gaslighting is a form of no, I don't know. I do think of them as pretty different because when I think of the propaganda, I don't think of it as straight up lies. Like straight up trying to
Yeah.
change the truth. Just kind of what we would say in my culture, cover the sun with one finger. Like, you know what I mean? I
That's an
think that
amazing
saying doesn't
statement.
translate exactly, but that's how we say it. Like over here trying to paint this picture that's totally not like that's not completely what it is, but it's like this narrow. Like you need to focus on this thing I'm saying, even though the whole reality is totally like not that's not the complete story.
Say that again. You said cover the sun with one finger.
Yeah, it's
That's
basically
a
where you're like trying to you have this whole like huge thing that's happening, but you're like trying to say something. I can't. I'm trying to think of an example of it. Um,
is it
maybe I can Google it.
yeah, no, I mean I'm trying to think about it in terms of the metaphor. It's a really cool metaphor. So that's a is that Dominican?
I think it's Hispanic
Oh, okay, okay.
or just it's in Spanish. Tapar el sol con un dedo is ignore reality.
Okay.
Is what it says here. So tapar el sol con un dedo means that you can't hide something huge that is obvious to everyone or that you don't want to deal with.
Oh, okay. So you could put your finger in theory up in the air and not be
Yeah,
able to see the sun, but yet like the light is
but the sun
everywhere.
is still
So
there.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like
Okay.
you're not actually covering anything. You're just like what are you talking about? There's a sun. Of course, you know, like that's
Oh, I really like that. I don't think there's an English or American phraseology to complement that. Like I don't know of a phrase that we use to mean something like that.
not that I can think of. I would have kept it in mind because I really like sayings and figures of speech and stuff like that. I always keep them in my mind.
That is really good. Interesting. Well, so we did have a little bit, we looked a little bit more at it here. So if we're saying propaganda, like advertising probably is propagandistic. but maybe isn't quite as manipulative as things like, othering the Jews in order to genocide them,
Well,
right?
yeah.
That's like a whole other level of propaganda, even though we could probably technically fit both of those into the definition.
I think the propaganda would have been what like Hitler and the Nazis and all that were, or what even Hitler and his like close people were saying to have to make the Nazis and the Germans and other people to try to get them on his side. Because you could
Totally.
say something like, well, and I can't say that much about that without feeling gross, but let's just say, I don't want to say something gross. Hold on. I don't know. You know, it's a touchy subject.
I know.
But like to get them people to be on that side, you can't just outright say, I don't like Jews. I want them to all die. Like you can't say that and have people on your side. You're gonna have to say something like, XYZ and then have proof of that, right? So like, because his whole thing was that from what I'm not an expert on this, but from what I have read, he blamed Jewish people for Germany losing the First World War. There might be something that he could have pulled
Um,
out of there about that, and then to convince everyone else that to agree with him, or
right.
like they're taking so much money, they have all this art, and we need to get it back, and it doesn't belong to them, like whatever, like things like that.
Yep. Well,
They're
yeah, I
supposed
mean,
to
he
bring
was
it back.
very good at crafting a message that just vilified them and blamed the problems they were having on them. And I think we'll hear in later in our notes here that repetition is one of those things that gets used to really make that work. And I mean, he used imagery of like rats and like, conjured up a lot of thoughts around like vermin and things that like made things gross and destroyed and yucky, and he was very good at slipping in words and images to things that like enhanced that. And to me, that's just like the grossest form of
Yeah.
propaganda to use it to turn people against each other. Ugh,
Yeah, that's where it starts getting like really like fucked up. That's where we start moving away from, while it may still be in the same category as the toothpaste stuff, it's not all the same. you know it's more extreme and problematic, but yeah,
for sure, for sure. Well, we had
hard
kind
to
of
bring
talked.
up World War II without like I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's oof. We have a lot of shitty things in our history to grapple with. Well, so we had talked about like the reason this is becoming a bigger series for us instead of just one episode about propaganda is that we realized how many aspects of life propaganda is thrown at us, right? So we were talking about obviously governments. Now that's really obvious when we're looking at things like World War II. But I'm guessing we could find some examples of governments doing that in ways now. Um, Corporations use it. Obviously, we already said advertising. So they would use it potentially to, not only sell their stuff, but to make sure that they've got the right look in the world, you know? And then we can get into each of these a little more deeply, but there'd be political entities and even individuals running their own personal propaganda campaigns, you know? But I know you really felt strongly about some of the things that governments do and how, like, why governments would use propaganda.
Yeah, well, like those political what do you call them, the political postcards, political campaign postcards, I think is what they call them. But they you get them in the mail, and so the way that they say it, right? So like for example, there was one, I can't remember her name, she was running for like governor or Congress or something here, and not governor, it definitely wasn't governor, I would have remembered that, some sort of political office here. And her whole like thing, her whole card said things like, you know bringing values back to Oregon, and things like that that sound good, right? Like it looks good on paper, but then you look at her, like really look at, right? Because that if you just go from those cards, is a bad idea. So anyone that's listening, never do that. Look at their, like actually look at what they're about. Like they have websites, there's all kind of information you can get out there. Anyway, so after I would get those, I would look online to see, what she's really about. And then it'd be something like she's against adding funding to schools, or like wants to put more money into military. I don't actually remember all the details of it, but like it was things like that. And it's like, where are the family values? Like you support private schools, but not public schools. And like you don't support reproductive health, like stuff like that is like it's not actually family values. But on paper, it's like, oh yeah, yay, we should support families.
Wow, and thus the power of propaganda. Because that's a code word, right? Family
Mm-hmm.
values is a code word for pro-life and anti-LGBTQ stuff.
Yeah,
And the people who are already of that mindset are catching that. And
yeah,
even I think even people who are on the fringes of that, but generally have more like progressive or liberal ideas might even get sucked in by that because of the repetition of those ideas or like the portions of like conservative things that maybe they still hold on to, even though they've got, more progressive ideas. And so that family values and things like that can really kind of muddy the waters. And isn't that what they're trying to do with that, is to muddy the waters and
yeah,
make sure people have one thing in their head, family values, and that even if the people go and do what you did and look to see what they actually are standing for, they're going to have that family values thing that was front and center on the flyer in their head. And they're going to run it all through that lens. And that, I mean, that is just propaganda 101.
yeah. I'm trying to find one of them on here because I remember thinking whenever I read that card, I'm like, well, yeah, this all sounds good.
Well, of course.
Like this, yeah, like maybe let me go online and see, like just to see. But if I had just gone off that, I would have probably voted for her. And I would have been wrong because we don't at all share the same values. And
Right.
also, I'm trying to move away too from, and you don't have to, of course, but I'm trying to move away from saying pro-life and doing more anti
Women's
what
healthcare.
like I'm trying to because I just think that pro-life is not the pro-life movement is not pro-life. Like they don't actually care about that because if they did, they'd put their same energy to like getting people health care and like things like
Of
actually
course.
caring for the child after it's born, like caring about what happens if these babies end up in foster care. Like all of that stuff is it's I just feel like you can't say pro-life, but you don't care about the life. You're
I mean,
pro-birth.
I think you're discovering that insidious little phrase, family values, is maybe one of the biggest pieces of bullshit coming out of the Republican side of things. Because yeah, it's like, is red herring, is that word like, I want to say red herring. I don't know if I'm using it right. Where you're like flying something up here to be like, hey, look out for this, but then actually you're like
Mm.
coming around the side and doing the real damage. I don't know.
Oh, Republicans did that a lot when Trump was in office.
Oh yeah, it's the game.
Yeah.
I think
Like I
politics in
remember
general.
when that big shooting happened in there were so many, I can't even remember. Las Vegas. It was a big one. It was like a country music thing or something. While everyone was paying attention to that, I remember Antonio was like, something about this doesn't seem right. Let me see what the fuck Republicans are doing in the background. And that was when they were in some sort of United Nations thing voting to so everybody was voting for is for it to be illegal to lynch someone for being gay or something like that. And everyone voted, okay, that should be illegal, except the US and like Iran or something.
Oh my God.
Like one other country. No, no, no. Iran did vote to make it illegal. I don't remember. It was like some super like yeah, anyway. Side
I
note of
gotta
that.
tell you, I've been paying attention to the US a little bit in the UN, and they look like the bad guy.
I mean, I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
Well then. Well, okay. So so in the government, why would they use propaganda? Well, if they want support for a bill, or I feel like propaganda, everything we read about it makes it seem like gaining public support, building unity, shaping perceptions, but I almost feel like propaganda is more effective when it's done to the negative, where it's looking to influence perceptions that are against something or that are actually like building national disunity. I don't know why I feel like I don't see a lot of propaganda that's trying to build unity. Well, I guess
Yeah.
if they're building unity, it's because it's a unity of us versus them. So maybe it's not really unity. It's unity of Americans or whoever against whoever.
Well, we can't have too much unity because then they lose power, they lose control.
Hmm.
I mean, look what's happening now with the internet uniting us like this. So much of the world is fighting back. Like we really like we're starting to really see what's going on. The governments can't have us come together. Like they have to have everyone black versus white, gay versus straight, Muslim
Hmm.
versus Christian. They that's necessary. I don't support it. Obviously, I don't want that to come across. I don't want it to come across that way. I think it's terrible, but also I understand it. I mean, if you really want to control a group, you have to separate them.
Well, I think the control part is definitely a part of it, but also just think about our big data, because all the algorithms, data, etc., that we've got going on now in our lives that are inextricably linked with the internet. The thing is, they only can sell us stuff if they know how we're different from other people, right? So it benefits like everything that they're collecting data for more sales, more views, more clicks, whatever. That is only going to be benefited by how we are different and not how we are the same, right? Because then they know how to create campaigns, whether it
Yeah.
be marketing, political, whatever, that goes in there and can
Mm-hmm.
scoop each tiny little demographic now because they
Yeah.
know how we're different and what tiny little things will get that particular slice,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I know. It's like the more I talk about this, I'm like, how do we even talk about propaganda? We just live in a world that's made of propaganda. I
Yeah.
mean, how can a capitalistic society not just be made of propaganda?
Yep. It's true. I just heard about this new, it's not a new group, but this people are coming together because apparently they feel that they've been like, they really, really, truly believe that the world is we're attacking people for being white conservative Christians with traditional home values. So there's like, I forgot what the name of it is called, but there's like a group now of people that are fighting for that. Like, I don't know anyone. Like I'm a pretty dang progressive, liberal, hippie, Marxist, communist, whatever. I'm all the things. And I have never in my life thought we need to make it not okay for someone to be a white person with a traditional like household where the, wife is at home with the kids and whatever. Like that, no, like nobody's coming for that. Like that's not true. Like we're just saying that it should be okay for other households. You know what I mean? Like for your family, for example, I feel like it would be equally as okay if your husband was home and you were running a business. It would be equally as okay. That's like my whole thing about it. But
Yeah.
for some reason, they've been led to believe that we're attacking it. We're making it wrong. We're trying to make it illegal to do these things.
Well, they liked it when that was the norm, when that meant they were at the top
Yeah.
of society. And so I don't think they're pushing again. Like I don't think they think really that progressives are trying to say you can't be white, cis, whatever
Yeah.
anymore. I think they're bucking, even if they don't realize it, they are bucking against the fact that they are being removed from the peak of the pyramid.
Yes, I never thought of it that way. That's true. Okay, because I definitely thought like the way she was saying it was like we need to protect this. People are coming for this, and like, but then again, that's see, this is where the propaganda was coming in place. She was saying that to her audience to make them think that they need to be afraid for this.
Oh,
Yes, you are
yes.
totally right.
Oh, yes. Yep, that's the propaganda.
Because she was in tears talking
Oh my
about this.
fucking
Like,
God.
so they wanted to be back to the like 1950s. You come home, your husband comes home from work and you have a roast in the oven and whatever. And like, if you want to do that, do that. Like, I feel like there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there was a lot of things wrong with the 1950s, but
Yeah.
as far as certain, like, I like the fashion back then and all that. It's expensive and inconvenient now, but like, there's even some like black people I follow on social media that they're all into the fashion of it, and that's their like full time. You know, like it's fine. You know, like that's not nobody's coming for it. Is my point.
Right.
But to like they propagandize. Is that the word? Is that a word?
Oh yeah,
Propaganda,
it
whatever.
is. Mhm.
It is okay.
Oh yeah.
But I was making stuff up.
So we were talking about governments and political campaigns, and I feel like that's where colloquially, like the average person would
Mm-hmm.
maybe start with, right? Would
Yeah.
go propaganda, political stuff, government. And but
Yes.
of course we see it a little bit broader than that, I think. Um, where we were looking at it in terms of advertising too, but I think it's not just advertising, like corporations in general, I think are pretty big at propaganda too. Um, and that
Yeah.
would be things like, well, so they want to influence consumer behavior, right? And here's the thing. We could do positive propaganda where it's not, which isn't propaganda, I know. But what if we did, these same sorts of things, but for the good, right? Like we could probably prop positive propagandize everyone away from fossil fuels a lot faster if we didn't have corporations out there like pushing it in our face and trying to make us believe that nasty pipelines and bullshit like that is actually fine for us because that's what they're trying to do. Um, right? So like there's this term greenwashing, and
Mm-hmm.
that specifically relates to stuff around sustainability and climate based things. So when companies will put out commercials and media that's kind of like making it appear as though they are taking action that's good for the climate, or this new product is reformulated to not have X, Y, and Z in it. But what they're not telling you is that it's not actually that good for the climate. It's not actually doing much that's better. It's just that they've caved to public pressure and are doing either the bare minimum or they're doing something that has some buzzwords attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're pushing it through thinking people won't notice that it's actually just as shitty as the thing before. So, for example, in town here in Portland, we happen to have 90% of Oregon's oil energy just sitting in big tanks on the riverbank of the Willamette. And that's terrifying and terrible because if we were to have an earthquake, as is predicted, all of that oil is it's on unreinforced, like it's unreinforced tanks on land that's going to liquefy in the case of an earthquake. So Forest
Oh my
Park,
gosh.
poof, kindling. The fireball that would live on the top of the water after the tar sands sank to the bottom and killed everything, the fireball would make it out to the Pacific Ocean in 3 days. Okay. So we've got Zenith Energy sitting out there among Chevron and all the other offenders sitting out there, and they're greasing palms in City Hall as much as they need to get what they need to keep going. And this is a Texas company. Zenith Energy is a Texas company sitting there putting Oregonians at risk. And something that was denied to them 4 or 5 years ago just got passed. And they're putting in pipelines, more fucking pipelines. But what they're saying is it's a pipeline dedicated only to renewable energies or renewable products. Well, we
How
know that,
could it? I don't understand that.
well,
Because fossil fuels aren't renewable.
well, these are technically not fossil fuels. They're some sort of other thing, but they're not, they're just as carbon heavy, if not more. And the production of them isn't good for the environment. So, yes, we're technically now burning something that wasn't pumped in the same way, but you're not actually making anything better. And what they're saying is, well, it has to be renewables. We couldn't possibly use those pipelines for anything else because if you ran other things through it, we wouldn't be able to run renewables through it again. Well, okay, so you're going to build this and you're going to say it's for renewables, and we know how this goes. A couple years down the road, you're going to be like, oh, well, the market shifted, so we're putting our crude oil through that pipeline instead. and then it's forever and always carrying crude or tar sands, even though what they were proposing to put in it still wasn't that much better.
Yeah.
And they can do all of that because there's so much technical information to understand what the river in biosphere right in that location actually needs to be thriving because it's dead. It used to be a braided river, really lively ecosystem, and it's been killed off by all that industry sitting there. So, I mean,
It's
it's not an easy fix though either.
right.
So and the people running the city government are just people, but corporations are speaking louder than they should have a right to now. So
Yeah.
that's where we've got a problem. And it puts one over on all of us because the propaganda that's greenwashing it makes us
Hmm.
not realize that we still need to be speaking up, you know?
Yeah.
Because not everybody can know everything about everything. And
Yeah.
yet, and so
And it's
then
all
there,
so complicated
it is. It is.
because
Right.
you have the people stuff like, okay, yes, like even if they understand, yeah, this is bad for the environment. But then somebody else starts talking, oh, but it creates jobs. So now
Mhm.
they have you thinking that you're coming for other people's jobs and like other people are going to be poor and it's going to be our fault. Like it's just so it's complicated.
Well, and
Or
that's
they're gonna we let them do this, they're gonna put money into the schools, but and the teachers need more money. So like like I don't know if this is all happening with this particular case, but things like that are not uncommon.
totally, totally. Well, right. And then they're really good at going, like the people who are going to support anything that makes more jobs because they're of the working class, which I understand. Like they're going to be able to hit them with that and get them on their side. And so
Yeah.
those people aren't going to want to listen to the people who are like, but it's wrecking the planet, it's wrecking the fish, it's putting the people in danger. They're not going to hear
Yeah.
that because they've
Because
already got the good jobs
I'm west.
and that's the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm west of Forest Park. So
Yeah.
if that fireball that you just talked about kind of freaked me out, if that fireball happened, there's a lot of people between and animals and like
Well,
oh
the
man,
fireball would be on the water. Sorry to clarify that. It would be the fireball would be traveling on the
that's
water.
bad.
It's terrible. I mean, think about the destruction. Because then we'd be having to fight fires along the whole edge as it
Fight them
makes
with
its
what?
way.
Fight them with what too? Because then are we gonna have to also pump in toxic chemicals into the water to like it's so sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah. And so that, I mean, that's the struggle that we're in is because corporations only have a legal requirement to make money and not a legal requirement to do good by the planet and the people who fucking live on it.
Yeah.
We're in a world of
That's why
hurt.
I like the way that the native populations, I don't know what tribe, I don't know if they were, who exactly said this, but their whole thing was they wanted to treat the earth. They were supposed to treat the earth in a way that is thinking about 7 generations ahead.
Oh, wow.
Because right now, like what we're thinking about is our generation. Well, not us
Oh,
particular, but you know what I mean? Like
that's
we're
where we
thinking
get
about
paper
making money
towels.
now. Yes, the
Seventh
seventh
generation.
generation. There's also a whole like line which I wonder how much of that is greenwashed.
I know. I was like,
That's
is
an
that
example right
greenwashed?
there. Probably. Like, I mean, I buy stuff all the time because it says, like it says like planet something, but it's like, is that really anything, doing anything? Or like, okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up, and I learned this when I was in school. But a lot of these like renewable things, or reusable things, I should say, reusable like products, they're not necessary. Like they are, it is better to do that, to use reusable, of course, but it's not that simple, right? So, like, for example, coffee cup, a coffee mug, it takes something like so the disposable ones, to make it equivalent to as far as like how long it's biodegradable or whatever, you'd have to use the reusable one for like 5 to 7 years or something like that. So if you're somebody that feels the need to throw away and replace all of your kitchen stuff every year, then it's not necessarily better. But and then that happens a lot with these water cups that everybody has, these Stanley cups and all these things. If you have to have 100 of them, it's not actually better necessarily than getting a like using disposable. Like just get one and use. The whole point of it is to use the same one forever or for a long time.
Yeah,
Anyway, I just
right.
want to throw that in there. I don't know if that counts propaganda, but I think it does because I think that they are out here telling people that they're doing something better for the environment. You know, you collect all these cups, you know, and stop using reusable or disposable cups, and you know, because it's better for the environment. But then also encourage them to have it in every color. Like that's crazy, and people do it. I seen this one woman; she had a whole display on her whole wall of every color. Like she had to have like 100 of them. For what?
Yeah.
You can only use one at a time.
Yep.
Necessary.
I don't understand that. Of course, I don't have space to store 100 of anything, so I understand.
I have been using this Costco cup, the same. Well, I have two, but sometimes it was a 2 pack of Costco, but I've been using the same one for at least 5 years, and I have no like it's still exactly as good as when I bought it. Exactly. I could. It's even dishwasher safe, and I have been using it. You know, for I mean, it's been a long time.
So it
Like
is
already, if I threw it
super.
out now, it would be better.
So maybe the 100 reusable cups is like this weird, nonsensical crossover of capitalism meeting with like the desire to do better.
Mm-hmm.
But capitalism still has to have its yucky fingers in there.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yikes. Well, let's see. So we've talked about governments and corporations and all of their products that we need to buy. Oh, another thing corporations will do is use propaganda to counteract their negative publicity, right? So if it's known that they're making a product that's like not healthy or not good for the environment or whatever, I mean, they'll do a lot of work to make sure that it looks like they're doing good in the world or making um, contributions to some sort of something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
probably, I feel like I just said nothing.
Well, I mean, I get so okay. So when you said that, what came to mind was whenever McDonald's, remember that lady that got burned from the McDonald's cup or
Yep.
McDonald's coffee? I mean,
Yeah.
and McDonald's then turned around and like spread all these rumors. Like everyone was hating this woman. Everyone was like, she's just trying to get money. This is ridiculous and whatever, whatever. But come to find out, she had serious, like long-term medical attention needing injuries from that, and
Right.
it was McDonald's fault.
Right. Because wasn't it that their
Like
coffee was legitimately kept at like above boiling temperatures or something insane like that so that it would,
something like that.
yeah,
Yeah. and and
like
and then
pressure held.
whenever she like they I think at first she just wanted her medical costs covered, but like it literally from what I heard, it actually was so hot that it melted, like her vagina fused together, like that's how bad. She
What?
did long-term burn things for her legs and everything, like long-term I don't know, skin grafts or whatever, I don't know medical stuff, but you know, like long, it wasn't just like she went to the emergency room, got some neosporin and went home.
Right.
No, like it was long-term care that she like a medical attention that she needed. But here
So,
we are, everybody believing the bullshit.
oh, totally. Well, and then you felt like McDonald's themselves was out there doing the propaganda? I guess it's hard
I
to know
thought
what
so,
they
but maybe not.
influenced. Well, I mean,
I would
we
have thought
wouldn't
I
know.
assumed that it was their lawyers that maybe
Yeah,
throwing something like that out there, and then it just kind of caught on. And
probably their PR. I think we're fooling ourselves if we don't think that big corporations like McDonald's have entire departments dedicated to understanding that and heading things off.
yeah,
They have to. They
they
just
do. They
have to.
definitely do. Even
And
small
we wouldn't
businesses
know
have
it.
like things like that.
If they were
Yeah.
behind the whole like putting out the propaganda to vilify this woman and oh, isn't that so stupid? She put the coffee in between her legs and now she wants McDonald's to pay for it. We wouldn't know if they were the
Yeah.
ones at the start, at the inception of those smear campaigns.
Right.
But you're right. They stood to lose a lot of like they stood to look bad and they stood to lose the money to her and have potentially other people be like, "Oh, me too. I spilled my coffee."
I mean, all it will really take is one interview with a journalist to have something spread, you know, like to have it then be on the news. And then, of course, these people like McDonald's owning, you know, like that level of corporate, of, you know, capitalism, like that level of it would have friends in, you know,
Oh yeah.
the media, news media, and all that stuff world. So Like I have never doubted that McDonald's had something to do with it. Maybe not like the CEO, but somebody there was, I mean, it had to be. Because why would anybody else have even thought about this case?
Totally. Oh, yeah. I think corporations know how to take care of themselves, and they do it with money that regular
Yeah,
people don't have and can't defend themselves against. It's some bullshit.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's where we'll leave it this time. To be continued in episode 13. If you get a kick out of our curiosity driven, racially diverse, and stony conversations, help us connect with more listeners like you. Join the conversation with a comment on Spotify or find us on Instagram.